Hey, how's it going, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft, which I ended up scoring a 5 out of 5, and it deserves every single point that I gave it. And I have a lot of things to say about this book. All good, literally nothing bad to say about this. It is probably one of my favorite new series that's come out. There's 4 books. I just ordered book number 2, so that's on the way. Surprisingly, can't find it in the stores at all. As good as it is, it's like, sometimes you can't find books in stores. Even the library didn't even have it, because it's, some books are just, they fly off the shelves because they're so popular. But if the library doesn't even have it, this one seemed to go under the radar, but it deserves all of the praise. There's so much content in this book that it's almost mind-boggling. I think this is the only book that I've read by Josiah Bancroft, and I made a note here. He's outdone himself. Even though I don't have anything to compare his other work to, he's still outdone himself. So the quick synopsis is that Thomas Senlin has just gotten married and to Maria, and they are planning their honeymoon to the Tower of Babel, right? So kind of like back in the day, that type of era, back when the Tower of Babel would have been around. I don't know the entire history of like the actual Tower of Babel, whatever, but, picture just an enormous building structure that is the size of like Manhattan or something, like New York, like whatever's bigger, New York City, Manhattan, I don't know. But imagine an enormous city, like circular building like this, but like different layers throughout the entire thing. And there's like at least, I want to say 4 or 5 layers going vertically. So imagine like a giant city like that, all contained within this giant superstructure of different ringdoms, they call it, because each ring has its own theme. Each ring has its own like government, politics, leaders, let's say. So Thomas Senlin and his new bride, Maria, they're going on their honeymoon to the Tower of Babel, which is supposed to be this beacon of new technology, cutting edge technology. And it's supposed to be like the epitome of high class. Everybody wants to go there, right? But when they get there, everything spirals downward because everything that Senlin knows about the Tower of Babel, he's done through reading. This is his first time visiting. So it's quite a shock that everything is turned on its head upside down. People are rude. And he quickly finds that he gets stuck within the tower, as weird as that might sound, through having to work and having to scheme his way up. Because he told his wife, if we ever get lost, let's meet on level 3, the baths, which is supposed to be like a relaxing area. And if we ever get separated for whatever reason, because of how big of an area this is, let's meet there, right? So that's kind of most of what his journey is. Very early on, he gets separated from his wife, and his goal is to try to get to the third level, which is the baths, and to try to meet up with her, try to, figure things out. But the amount of content that's in this book, I think most authors would try to spread out within their own trilogy, right? You could make a trilogy out of this book. You could almost make an entire book out of each ringdom that we're talking about, right? The lower level is the basement, where it's kind of like the party level. People are always drunk and fighting, and just not a lot of law and order, just a lot of chaos, right? When you move up, the higher you move up, the more civilized things get, but also the more conniving everybody becomes. Second level is the parlor, where you have to basically act out a part of either this very wealthy man who's like looking over this, like a mansion. And you can either play that part, or if you're a woman, you can play the wife, or you can play one of the servants. And then there are people that are watching this, and you're forced to do these things. It's not like you can say, all right, I want to walk through the basement and I want to walk through the parlor. I want to skip my way up. No, you have to pay for that. And this giant Tower of Babel is large enough to contain airships within it, right? So if you can picture like giant like balloon, I forget the name of, I forget what you would call them, in real life, but like those like blimps that like carry people at the bottom. This Tower of Babel is so enormous that it's got multiple airships like flying through it and flying on the outside. And if you have enough money, if you're rich enough, obviously you don't have to work your way up through these, through these layers. You can pay to just go to the top, pay to go whatever level you want to. But Senlin becomes really disappointed because he thought it was supposed to be the epitome of like class, right? He came here with all his money, and on his first day he gets robbed, right? So it's almost like this vicious circle of people who go there expecting one thing, and then they get stuck into almost having to become a servant, trying to work their way out, and then their employers say, oh, well, yeah, you owe me because of this tax, and now you owe, like you make so much money, and then they tax you, and then now you have to keep working, cost of living keeps going up, and then eventually if you can't pay back your debts, because pretty much everybody in the tower is in debt at in some way or another, unless you're like a top executive, whatever. They get you stuck in this circle of having to try to work off your debt. And some people have been there, one of the characters, like 15 years, something like that, 15, 20 years trying to make his way out. Which, when I'm explaining it, seems almost like preposterous that you'd be stuck in a building like this. But when Bancroft lays it out, it's so well done and it's so believable. There's really no magic at all. It's like a fantasy book, but not quite magical, right? There are like some elements that seem to be on the magic side, but those haven't been explained yet, and I don't want to ruin anything. But there's an incredibly rich amount of storytelling here. Every character is likable. Even on the back of the book, it said, like, Senlin has become the most likable, unlikely hero in any book that I've read, and I'd have to agree with that. He's a professor or a history teacher back where he lives, teaching children. And so he's always teaching about how great of a place that Babel, the Tower of Babel is, and he's got all of his, his history books, and he's somewhat naive to the world, thinking that everybody's always going to be this good person, and he gets tricked a lot. But he goes, the character arc, which is just starting in this book, he goes from naive schoolmaster to a guy who really has to look inward and see a different side of himself, that he kind of has to play the game if he wants to save the people that he loves. And I've said this before, I think in maybe, I think it was one of the videos I did for The Eye of the World, where I really enjoy when cities seem alive. I like descriptions of cities in fantasy books because, people buying food from the market and the entertainment, and there's the general buzz of a city that seemed alive. And the Tower of Babel has its own life to it. And it's so hard to describe and put into words, but it just feels authentic and genuine. And every sentence in this book has a purpose. There's no fluff. He does not cut any corners, whereas some books you can feel that they're predictable and they have tropes. There are no tropes in this book. You cannot predict the ending, which makes it just so easy to fly through and want you to, it's a page turner, because it doesn't follow any of the conventional tropey things that some books fall into, completely unique story, and every single thing about it, I have nothing but good things to say. And the fact that there's 4 of them, I'm really happy about that. So this is definitely one that you don't want to pass up. Please make this book more popular than it seems to be. Just my gut feeling, it seems like it's gone under the radar somehow within this genre of books, but I really think that it needs to be, put out in the front of the race, because Bancroft has put more thought and attention into this one book than I think most authors would put into their entire trilogy, and there's 4 of them. So I think he deserves all of the credit that he's looking for. So absolutely pick this one up for the holidays. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next book review video. See you later.